from a method, since you spoke about, you've been really ingrained in the methods. I'm just curious from a methods perspective. Your goal attainment scaling, every patient, it's very personalized. So I assume that, let's say you have 100 patients and all their goals are different. Let's in a qualitative way, they all look different. In From a methodological perspective, do you then map that into something that's more common, or what is the, because I assume that's the pushback, is like, oh, if everyone has different metrics, then how do we compare it across the board? So maybe you can speak a little bit to that, share.
Yeah, so it is, you do get different goals for sure. So if I was going to get into a trial and you were in a trial, Lester, I'm looking at you through the screen, you look really fit. We both might have like a running goal. And I might say I want to run a marathon by the end of the year. And my clinician might laugh and say, like, yeah, good luck with your back injury and all your problems. You might be back up to a 10K, but there's no chance. And your clinician might say, absolutely, Lester, you should think of an ultra marathon. You've got this. So it is tricky because your running goal, or even maybe it's just a walking goal, might be different from my running goal, or Costas's cycling goal, or whatever it is. But the similarity is that each of our goals is quantified on a 5-point scale. And so we all start off at the beginning of the trial at -1, and our goal is very clearly articulated at 0. And what would be better than that is articulated at +1, and better than that +2. And what would constitute a decline is articulated at -2. So even if we just each have one goal and we go through the trial and I manage to move up to 0 and meet my goal and run a 10K, and then I go beyond that and actually manage to run a half marathon or something like that, and I get to a +2, and something happens, Lester, and you don't get there, and whatever, you go down to minus, you can see that over time, if you just forget about what the goal was, you can see that I was improving and you were declining. So we can compare our scores numerically. And if we each have 3 goals, or if I have 3 goals and you have 5 goals, there's a simple T-score formula where you can weight the goals according to their importance for you, and you can combine them all in a summary stat. And so you can look at that summary statistic over time individually to quantitatively measure in person, like within person change. And you can look at it across a group to quantitatively measure whether one group is improving or meeting their goals in a statistically significant, more frequent way than the group and the placebo arm. So that's the way you compare. So that's kind of the first order inference of gas we say is, was one group more likely to achieve their goals than the other group, irrespective of what any of those goals were. And then you only get into paying attention to what the actual goals are when you start to think about, okay, well, that's interesting. They were able to. So what were the goals driving that change? And then you get in and say, okay, actually, nobody was achieving their mobility goals, but everybody was achieving their cognition goals or whatever other goals they have. And you can kind of learn a little bit more about how the drug is driving improvement.